It's funny how quickly things can go pear-shaped in fantasy, and the biggest skill is learning how to adapt and overcome that, moving forward so that you can get back on track and start making ranks. It's been a little while for me since I've gone up. I've been sliding for a little bit, mostly thanks to not owning Herbie. And yeah, a couple of guys just not quite working out with Couchman, Carraz, all that kind of stuff. I might have one more left before I start going back up because we'll flick over in a minute. But 900 for me this week, lost about 600 ranks. This is my bench for this week, plus Haas. I don't think I can sell any of these guys. That's genuinely my only option would probably be a luxury trade for Kai Pierce Paul at this point because I've got a couple of extra edges. So I might be playing with 12 this week, and that's the points hit that I might have to take to set up well for the run home. Now, I've brought in Kane Bradley purely because, well, three wing fullbacks I have, and I don't need to buy like a Jed Stewart or anything like that. I've got them. I need it centre, and well, the best option that isn't a keeper because I can't afford one is probably Kane Bradley for a couple of weeks with Jack Howarth out with appendicitis and Farlongo also missing that terrible hamstring injury. Such a shame for him. He was having a fantastic game, and then after that ankle tap, stepped a bit wrong, and yeah, looks like he ripped it completely, or at least majorly injured himself. So thoughts with him. This week is an interesting week because this bloke has always been an option to sell moving forwards, and he just never has. He's got better and better. His scores have been going up and up, and so has his price. And it's getting to that point where we start to wonder, does he just become like a backup half in our teams? Does he become a budget keeper option? I think that we're going to have to wait and see what happens with Sam Walker potentially next week. I think he's back, but he was always in my plans to upgrade. And with my team value not as good as it was probably a month ago compared to the top, I'm now probably 300 to 400k off where I would really, really like to be. I mean, that's the difference between a Couchman and a Duncan. Hey, but I think I might end up having to keep somebody like like Savala. And Lehi Hopewade is probably going to go out instead for Herbie Farnworth. Now, I will be getting back Cleary. I will be getting back Campbell. I'll be getting back all these guys from injury, from Origin, and all that. That alone will pretty much put me in contention to make a lot of ranks because I've been holding these guys quite a while and it has hurt me a little bit more than I thought, considering some of the injuries in the last 2 or 3 weeks. But it will help me set up for the run home. I think the big learning curve and the biggest value point from this whole Origin period this year has been with the 13 rounds. That is the 13 players in the 6 rounds. I think so far what we've learned is don't try and force a perfect team because fantasy isn't perfect. Fantasy is unpredictable. And if you've got a strong team, but you buy some budget options, you're not going to get hurt too much. And that might actually help you, especially if you're selling some of these guys to get there or selling some of those guys to get other guns who aren't necessarily perfect, but are bridge options and things like that. It might sound a bit waffly, but it might not play out this way next year. Who knows? But yeah, Campbell, Cleary, holding for me has not been the most fun, and might just have to leave it at that. It's been a few weeks since I've gone over the league. I've slipped down to 13th. Been sitting up around 7th, 8th, 9th for a while, but yeah, Jamie's pushed about 100 points ahead. I'm sitting pretty middle of the pack at the moment. Some good scores by Mitch. Has got him coming right up behind me now. So well done for Mitch's recovery, and well done to all the NRL Fantasy Echo Chamber guys, particularly Jay-Z in ninth. If you want to hear more of his thoughts, he's sometimes on the Casual Athlete or the Echo Chamber podcast as well. But yes, Cookie is getting up there just outside the top 1,000. Let's actually have a look at the ranks. So we've got a bit of a tough year. Only the 5 of us in the top 1,000 at the moment, but I think there's probably another 3 or 4 primed to move into that position very shortly. Okay, so the question is, who do we buy this week? Who are we looking at, and what's the situation? And footy stats, I mean, it's sort of there, but I don't know how helpful it is this week because there's not as many trades going around. So Karapani is one. But he's now 383k. He's not quite cash out territory. He's actually more expensive than Jack Bird by about 50k. And that Broncos wing is the most profitable scoring spot in the comp for tries. But it's taken that many tries for him to score really, really well. And yeah, the run is pretty good. Canterbury missing Origin stars, Titans by Para Rabbits. That's good. But I don't know if it's worth bringing him in at this point. I think he's definitely an option, but yeah, there's no perfect options anymore like there were throughout the year. 2 turnover tackles as well, so that could have been a 46 very easily, even with all this extra attack. So I don't mind him, but I prefer probably others. Nwanga Waze is arguably one of the best options this week, believe it or not, even though he is 600k and probably not the tip-top centre. The Roosters seem to be using him very, very strongly in attack, whether it's centre, whether at wing. He's a focal point, and he's just the kind of player who will absolutely rack up those tackle breaks, offloads, and all that. A bit like a Carraz. So 2, 2, 3 offloads, 7 tackle breaks, 3 tackle breaks, 1, 4, 8. Low one there against the Raiders, but that's the Raiders. And he's starting to score a lot as well. So it's not amazing compared to some of the big 50s and 60s hitters like Jaden Campbell or Latrell Mitchell. But I think with the 3 matchups he's got coming, he could put up some more of those sort of scores, those 80s, those 70s. Tigers, absolutely decimated. Dragons, decimated. Cronulla, well, we just saw how the Storm absolutely ripped their right edge to shreds. I think Mark's in for some joy in the next few weeks. So, a bit of a different one, bit of a pod, but one of the better buys this week, I think. Jack Bird himself. Now, he didn't quite play 80, but he played close enough and he did enough work that I think that it's a good option. And they had the opportunity to put him at centre this week, but they didn't. They put Luke Lalili there and moved Taruva to fullback. I think Jack Bird is a really solid option, actually. He's close to my favourite option. He's not going to be the flashiest scorer. He's not going to probably run all those huge tackle break offloading scores that Jack Bird has sometimes done in the past as a forward. In fact, I think this game was the first game in a long time that I hadn't seen him do as much of that. But it also meant that, well, he made 30 tackles. He made 40 tackles. That's a lot. Only missed one, which was good. And yeah, so the base is very solid for Bird if he stays in that position. I really like him, probably more than Karapani. Now let's go down into these cheap guys again. Now, one of them is named Jed Stewart. By this stage, you know what Jed Stewart is. Jed Stewart is going to play round 18. He's going to miss round 19. He's going to not score very well unless he gets a try. And that might be a 30 or a 15. We just don't know. He's got longer runway than some of the other guys until about round 26 when Tamale is back. But at this point, you're buying him for a number this week, and then you're probably not playing him again unless like half your team breaks and you run out of trades. So that's him. Another guy who's a little bit in the same boat, but is available at centre, doesn't play as many games moving forward because Jack Howarth's supposed to be back in about round 21, so he's got 3 weeks potentially, is Kane Bradley. Now, poor Farlonga is busted with the hamstring injury. Howarth is out, so Kane Bradley has an opportunity on the wing for a couple of weeks. As a winger, he's not the flashiest, not the greatest scoring, but I mean, he's there. And with these matchups, especially Cowboys and Newcastle, who knows? He might even score a bit better than Jed Stewart. And if you need a centre instead of a wing fullback this week, like I do, I'm probably going to go that direction and then sit him down in my emergencies for most of the rest of the year. Okay, so that covers. Actually, no, there's one more cheap guy. Jay-Z pointed this bloke out, and his name is Tom Rodwell. Now, I have to say, his cup stats look a bit like Jed Stewart's. They look a bit rough. But, I mean, he could score 3. He could score 3 versus the Tigers this week. And that's all you need him for. Whack out a 45 and then disappear back to no man's land. I don't know if I prefer him to like a Kane Bradley or a Jed Stewart, but the matchup's probably better. And he's definitely an option there, especially if there are backline injuries and he does come in, considering they've picked him over some of the other options as a backup. Now, that's enough about all those cash downs. Those cash downs give you enough money to be able to get somebody that you want, or moving forward, something along those lines. Now, Damen Cook for me probably is going to sit in my team for the rest of the year, probably, but it's not fantastic signs for him when there's 3 middle forwards on the bench, albeit probably not the hugest minute guys, but there's also just the fact that he's not playing quite as many minutes as hoped. He's fumbled along to some decent scores through this Origin period, but I'd say him and Hopewade are high on the chopping block list come out of Origin, probably Hopewade first. That's going to turn him into Herbie, and Cook may go to, I don't know, somebody like a big mid, or maybe even a Latrell Mitchell type situation. So I think that front home is just going to be all about the game breakers. I mean, Dylan Edwards is even really, really cheap and is starting to rev up with Cleary. Cleary back, and the Panthers actually looking dangerous now. How crazy would it be if the Panthers managed to go deep in the finals again after that shocking start to the year? A couple of years now, they've started a bit iffy and then kicked off a big winning streak through a win against the Eels. So you're welcome, Panthers fans. Let's have a look at Edwards in the last few weeks, see what's different about him. All right, so last few weeks, he's picked it up. And the part of the reason for that is, well, it's kind of a little bit across the board. So there's been plenty of 20s and there's been plenty of 30s in there. And a lot of that seems to be just because there's not a lot of additional power stats going on. There's not much try assists. There's a couple more errors. It's maybe not the 250 run meters, and it's more high 100s. Now that the Panthers look like they're powerful and dominating, those attacking stat guys become attacking stat guys. That could be Dylan Edwards. So I like him as a cheaper run home type option. Definitely better than somebody like Lehigh Hopewade for sure. And if you need that backup wing fullback who probably is going to play every game, I imagine, because the Panthers want to get as high as they possibly can, I don't mind it. I don't mind it. All right. Latrell is Latrell. Look, we barely even have to look at his stats to know why he's good. But the thing is, on top of what he usually gets, like the back end of last year, look at this. Look at this. He's the primary kicker. He is the primary kicker. He's a goal-kicking fullback who is the primary kicker. This is a huge, huge ceiling guy. In fact, his lowest two scores have been 48 and 46 since round 10. And that's since his bin. And there's been an 80, a 70, and 260s in there with 2 tries. 2 tries. If he revs up against some of these softer teams, like potentially Cronulla, Gold Coast, Para, St George, there could be some mental scores from him. So 730k, he's not as cheap as he was anymore. He got down to below 700k briefly, but yeah. If there's a game breaker that you want in your team in the run home, it's probably the Trell. Okay, now that'll probably do us for fantasy because, well, we're getting to that point of the year where there's less options than there used to be. And the strategy is all about picking those players and deciding which budget guys to go for. Duncan, Donahue, and Savala have been the go this year, and that's why some of the guys at the top, like Jay-Z, have really pushed hard. But in SuperCoach, it's a little bit different. Go away, Coach Sports. Yes, you need those big guns, but you can get ceiling scores from pretty much anybody who gets good attack. And that's why Karapani basically was the buy of the week last week. Those bunch of tries and the low break evens, the way that the break evens work, not changing until 3 rounds. He made 100k, 5 tries in 3 games from not basement price, but pretty cheap. Kane Bradley there has the centre second row forward duel and is playing this week. He's been my Lucas flipper for about 6 weeks now. And I mean, I'm absolutely stoked with how this has turned out because he'll just go back to being enough eventually and happy with that. Now, my team value for SuperCoach is pretty good. And I have 12 trades left after bringing in Nwanga Nitawaze. I think there's going to be some good scores coming out of that, and hopefully my team can push a little bit. But the setup's not completely done. So Hosking did well last week, but when Young's back, I'd say he'll go back to being a bit meh. Savala doesn't get those big kick meters in Supercoach and relies on this big attack. So he's probably got another week or 2 left in him, and then he'll go on. Karapani may end up being an upgrade target as well. Who knows? And Jaden Campbell will come back. Jaden Campbell is probably a really, really good target in round 19 for those who don't own him because a couple of slightly lower ones and then that injury game meant he got real cheap, real quick. 700k down 150k since then. So I would be looking to target him if you don't own. And of course, the big question is, who do you get Nathan Cleary for? How do you get Nathan Cleary back? If you've only got one of these two, it's probably an easy choice. You just pick the other player. But with the Storm starting to look a little bit better and like they'll punish a few teams, Jerome Hughes has stepped it up. Jerome Hughes has hit 3 tons now, I think, in about 6 weeks. Problem is, in between those games, and not flash, not great for somebody that you want to be scoring all the time. But the thing is, the Melbourne attack's just working like that this year. Pappenhausen gets it sometimes, Hughes gets it sometimes, Munster gets it sometimes. And I think if you have all 3, you're going to be getting at least probably a combined 200 points a game, 250 points a game quite comfortably. It worked out at 213 last week. And, well, sometimes it goes really, really big when Munster, Hughes, and Pappenhausen all turned up in the one go, and it just went nuts. So that could be another week of this with Hughes and Pappenhausen. Even Katoa, it could go huge again versus some softer defense with Cowboys out for Origin. Now, I think the plan for me moving forwards is probably Savala out next week to bring in. It's tempting to bring in a Hudson Young, but can't really do that round 19. Angus Crichton is also an option. with Walker back, but might want to watch. Maybe I just hold. Maybe I just hold an extra week and just use that money to go Hines to Cleary. How much is Cleary sitting at currently? Yeah, Hines to Cleary next week will be the play, I reckon, and it'll just leave it at that. So that'll probably do for me, guys. If you're wondering for the hooker in the run home as well, just before I sign off, Harry Grant's good. I think Connor Watson's a little better. And yeah, straight swap Sandon up to Watson is only about 100k difference. Yeah, so that's manageable if you've got some other options as well. I'm third, I think, in the Podmasters League currently, which is really awesome. Managed to hold that for a couple of weeks now and push for the run home. Get behind some of these other guys as well. Cracking good players at SuperCoach. And Jamie is, where is he? There he is. Jamie's starting to push up the ranks a little bit too. So scored about 60 points more than me last week and is starting to push towards a pretty decent finish after a rougher start. So get behind Jamie, see if you could push into the top 2,000 or so. Maybe even with a really strong finish, you can get a bit higher. How many points is he off top 1,000? 247 to 679. So about 400 points. Maybe that's a little out of reach, but I mean, as we just saw last week, a captain swing can be worth 90 points. If you pick a few good gun scores, you pick a few good captains, and you've made up most of that. So yeah, I reckon Jamie can finish pretty strong and have a good finish to the year in Supercoach and Fantasy as well. Get behind him in Dream Team. Jamie's coming home. I might just have to be a Supercoach player at this point because Dream Team's shocking and I need a turnaround in Fantasy. So fingers crossed I don't lose too many ranks with 12 this week and then I can really make that push moving forwards. Until next week, guys, have a good Origin and round 18.